Our schools, the county, our faith-based community, business, civic groups. We want to make sure that we provide mentorships and internships and job opportunities for our children. We will also dedicate officers to engage with these children as well and make sure that we make that reconnection between the police and the community. And we'll also reach out to the juvenile system and make sure we work with them for, to make sure that we have collaborative diversion programs and initiatives for the youth. This is a big deal to me. And I'm focused on helping police-community relationships. And as chief, I'll bring every resource, every relationship, and keep our city and our neighborhoods safe. We're going to expose the humanity in each other by embracing what we have in common. We will work together instead of against through conversations and partnerships. And we'll enhance both our focus on stopping crime as well as work toward the root causes of those crimes. And I'm ready for this new journey, and I'm excited to work in Chattanooga. So thank you for having me.
Before we jump into Q&A, I do want to just thank and acknowledge the 6 members of our panel. We've got some here today to help guide us through this process. Pastor Trinae Jordan, who you heard from, Joe Smith, District 3 School Board member, the Reverend Ann Pierre, Christy Wilder from Southern Adventist. Also, we have Charlie Brock and Dr. Ernest Reed. So let's give them a round of applause. And so we'll open it up to Q&A if you've got anything.
So you've mentioned in the past when you're working with Atlanta, your experience working in a department where it's mostly male-dominated. And not only are you the first woman chief in Chattanooga's history, by default, you're also the first black woman chief in the department's history. And this is all occurring during Black History Month. So could you please tell me what it means to you to be able to represent a department particularly during this month, and what it means to you to be able to be a minority who can represent a police department and work with Chattanooga's minority community to make it better?
Thank you for that. You know, it means so much to me, so much that not only is this Black History Month, but next month is Women's History Month. That's how much I focus on this. And that's why there's absolutely no way that I'm going to allow the Chattanooga to fail, because you took a chance on me. And I'm going to do everything in my power to make sure that we make a good, comeback from, some of the challenges that we're seeing here. And it speaks a lot to not only the mayor, the community, and the panel that interviewed me and didn't even let on one little bit. They had that, they gave strong questions, so this was not an easy process. And to speak to PERP's, the Police Executive Research Forum's platform, to be able to do this process means a lot that I was able to come through that, because it's not an easy venture. But what it means to be able to do this in a male-oriented, well, I think that one thing I can credit is that the department that I'm coming from, easily recognize the talent that, all other races and genders have to bring to the table. Diversity is how you were able to solve problems, because you have different perspectives. And that was one of the things that I said that I wanted to bring to Chattanooga, was a different perspective. And it's not always about, something being totally wrong or not working or it's disastrous. It's just about sometimes a fresh start, a new perspective, a different direction will make you move the needle.
And what do you think is the best way to diversify police departments? Because many are predominantly white males. So what's the best way to diversify departments so the department better represents the communities that they serve?
The easiest thing for me, and I know it worked for me, and I'm sure it works well for others, is seeing someone that looked like me doing what I came to do in this department, in my department, and doing here. As a young officer in the department, I never saw this day occurring. It just wasn't in my mind at the time. But when you're exposed to things and you see that you have a chance to do it, and you're allowed and given the resources and the tools to do it, you'll do it. So you need to see someone that looks like you, and you need someone to give you the opportunity to be able to achieve it, and it'll happen. So when you want to diversify a department, then you go to those neighborhoods, you go to, you know, those establishments where, you know, you'll find the demographic that you're looking for, and you reach people where they are, you meet them where they're at, and then you show them what the department can do and how to enrich their career.
And one more question. There's a lot of distrust in police among the minority community. I know in the past you were serving as deputy chief during the George Floyd protests in Atlanta. And I believe you said that you've also had a family member who died in police custody. So could you elaborate on that and what it's like to balance being in the police field and also dealing with people within your own community that don't trust them or are hesitant to cooperate with them?
It goes back to making sure that we bring humanity back into the law enforcement profession. I did indeed have a relative who died in police custody, ended up being the wrong person, should not have been in custody. And, you know, to be a person who was at that time a high-ranking official in the police department and I wasn't able to help, I know what that feels like for families who are in similar situations. So there's no way that I would make another family go through the same thing that my family also went through. It would not happen on my watch. I've also been a person throughout my career as a supervisor, held people accountable, you know, to their actions. So by no stretch do I want the Chattanooga Police Department to not think that I'm not on their side, because I'm always going to cover who's under me. I'm always going to do that as long as we do the right thing, and I will hold you accountable to it, and we'll learn from things, and we'll move on. But you just have to make sure that you set a standard, and you have to be fair across the board with it, and you got to stick to that standard so people know what to expect.
Thank you.
Chief Murphy, Scott Ford with News 12. First, how does that title sound?
It's still surreal, but it's starting to trickle in. It feels real. It's starting to feel more real.
All right, and second question is, my dad was a police officer in Chicago for 28 years, and he used to say that every day was like a homework assignment. Aside from finding out where the bathroom is, your parking spot, things like that, what's your first homework assignment as chief of the Chattanooga Police Department?
Well, first I want to make sure that I meet everybody that I'm going to work with. That's the first order, you know, and just get clear, you know, direction of what my vision is. And then I'm going to go out on the street and I'm going to meet everybody that lives in Chattanooga. It's going to take me a while, so y'all may have me around for a while because I'm going to meet everybody here. But I want to see what, you know, I want to know what the community wants from me as well, because it's not just about my perspective. It's not just about reading, you know, crime stats and data. It's about, you know, what are we doing and how does it affect you? And I want to know that piece as well.
This coming Saturday, and not to bring anything down, but this coming Saturday happens to be the 10-year anniversary of Trayvon Martin's death. And while that wasn't a police department issue or anything like that, not trying to rehash any past, but how do you see the future going when it comes to race relations within a police department?
Yeah, you have to make sure that the same thing that you expect out of the community, police relation, you have to make sure that the internal relationships within the police department are mirroring that. You want your police department to mirror the city, and you want the behaviors in your department to mirror how the city expects you to be. So those are incidents that none of us want to go through, you know, in our city. Whether it's police related or not, it's still a tone, it's still a behavior, it's still a belief. And, you know, at the end of the day, people look at it as black and white. And that's just something that we need to make sure that we start looking at each other and realizing that there are more commonalities than having differences. Yes?
Clearly you have quite an extensive and accomplished background. I wanted to ask, you know, what part of your professional or personal background do you think prepares you best to assume this position?
Professionally, again, it's my experiences. I think if you police in Atlanta, you see a lot of things. You could probably, it's very few things that I have not seen, but that doesn't mean that those are experiences aren't in many cities. It's just, you know, that was my exposure, but you see it a lot, and you know, it makes you prepared to handle whatever gets thrown at you. you know, I've been on the department enough years, and the different assignments that I've had, every time I think I've seen it all, a new day brings on a new challenge, and I think that's what I'm good at. You know, a challenge comes my way, and I'm able to swiftly look at everything surrounding that issue and coming up with a bunch of plans, and I usually make sure that I involve other perspectives in the matter, whether it be internally and or externally, and that's what I'm good with when we speak to collaboration, because it's not just about me. You know, it's about bringing a bunch of minds together and coming to it. Now I can make a quick decision by myself. There's no problem with that. But if we have the time, you know, I like to get a different perspective and make sure that everybody's, at least there's a happy medium with the solution.
We've got time for about 2 more questions, guys.
I've got one. Ma'am, I'm David Toulis with Duke Radio. The city has been under transportation administrative notice for 4 years and 2 days, and that's a document that points out what is clearly ultra-virus or beyond the law enforcement of the traffic statute. Is that something you'll take a look at once you get settled into office, because it has not been responded to by the city, and it does pose liability to the individual safety, if you will, of officers? Chief.
If that was a question, yes.
One more question, yes.
You mentioned addressing not just crime, but the underlying causes of crime. How do you intend to go about doing that?
That's, you know, getting to know the community. And if you're policing from a car and not walking and involving yourself in the community, then you're not going to know. It's not just about, it goes beyond that, I guess, the outer part of what you see. If you don't know within your community or a certain neighborhood what's the underlying tone that's causing these issues, then you're not in connection with your community. And you have to be to know it's not about arresting your way out of a situation, because we've learned through the years that that does not fix it. So we've got to look at, someone spoke to wraparound services. You know, we have to go beyond looking at someone breaking the law, you're arresting them and locking them up. We've got to go beyond it. We have to think outside of that, or else we're just not going to solve this.
All right, thanks so much, everybody.